So in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, I wish to state that on February 6, 2015, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board mounted to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. We're hereby directing this announcement made a part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask all to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Coggins?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mayor Colombo?
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, we don't have minutes this for the last meeting. We'll have both sets of minutes at the next meeting, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So at this time, you want to tell us about your vacation, Barbara? Or I don't think
It was wonderful.
we'll not call
I'm
it.
glad
How come you didn't
Welcome
do
back.
minutes?
Though. By the way, that's very dedicated. She just got back and came here actually basically from the airport. So, so that's very admirable. Mr. Young.
Okay, just want to give a brief update on the tax assessment revaluation. As the committee is aware, maybe some of you, Jeff, you may not be aware of it, but we were under an order from the County Tax Board to have our assessments, all of our assessments revalued. An outside company was obtained and approved through the State Division of Taxation to do that. And this week, the initial notices of reassessment will be going out to residences, and thereafter they'll also go out to the commercial owners. There will be an opportunity for residents and taxpayers to review those assessments, to hopefully correct any errors. There will be meetings set up from February 20th through the end of the month. And that will all be outlined in notice to the taxpayer. Again, this is being done by the outside company that was approved by the Division of Taxation, the contract that we had to enter into pursuant to the order from the County Tax Board. So that's happening. Once that occurs, the tax rate will be set based upon the recalibration of values throughout the entire township. And thus far, there haven't been any major issues. It seems to be going according to schedule, and obviously no one's seen their values yet, so we'll see what happens when those notices go out. Other than that, I just have, there's a handful of contract negotiation matters for closed session and personnel issues.
Okay. Mr. Dietrich.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a committee update. On Friday, the Parkway set the first girder on the span. That was one of the girders over Harbor Road. So, on Friday they had several closures, as well as on Saturday. I'm not sure if they were working today. They were scheduled not to work because of the weather, but when the weather didn't kind of do it, they thought it was going to do. I don't know if they started working today or not. But the rest of this week, weather depending, they will have further extended delays and road closures there as they set the rest of the girders on that first span over Harbor Road.
I think they got 3 set.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I had today.
Nothing this evening.
Nothing, Barbara? Okay. Mr. Coggins.
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Young.
Just a couple things. We finally getting quite a bit of work done out in Amanda's Field with the grading, trying to get the final grades and the swales in so that we can get the water runoff fields. And again, the lights are scheduled to be delivered on the 23rd. So we have to get the main grading done in between the fields so that we're ready to set those poles. Tomorrow night, or is there anything going on here tomorrow night so I can use the conference room?
The conference room? No, that's
All right, tomorrow night, 7:30, we're going to have a first meeting of our event committee we're going to try to put together, just as a preliminary to see who's involved and who wants to be involved. The only other thing I have is you could ask Karen to put a porta potty back by the metal building for where the batting cages are.
Okay.
They're starting to use it every afternoon, every night now. And I guess the kids are out against a tree somewhere, so it's, we need to get one out there. Other than that, that's about all I had.
Okay. Mr. Barr.
As Hobie stated, we've been working together on Amanda's Field, getting him the manpower out there to get some projects underway. Can't wait till we get the lights set up out there. So looks like we got a lot of work set up right now, and we're working together with Roy and Terry, and as you'll see with our next budget meeting, they'll do a presentation as far as where we stand, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, Mr. Pearson.
Good afternoon, sir, or good evening. I attended a seminar for newly elected officials this past Saturday up in East Rutherford, and it was an all-day event. It was excellent training. I really enjoyed it, although the ride was a little bit tense, but other than that, it was really good. We meet tomorrow with the contractor for the Route 50 Bridge, Rescue Squad, Tuckahoe, and some of our people tomorrow to discuss further that venture of the closing of that bridge. The Seaville Fire Company and the commissioners are prepared to brief on the 30th of March at the regular meeting, so they're ready to go with that. Rabies clinic, second rabies clinic is scheduled for the 28th of February, which is a Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m. at the Shore Vet Clinic on Hope Corson Road, if anybody wants to take their pets there. I also attended the Upper Township Rescue Squad, Seaville Volunteer Fire Company, and Marmora Volunteer Fire Company annual dinners, and awarded the officers, or appointing of the officers of the associations, installing. It was very interesting. All three were excellent, and I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I will be out of state this coming weekend, so if anybody's trying to reach me, I'll be at a wedding in Baltimore, Maryland, so I'll be off the grid, as they say.
Eating those good crab cakes.
Yes, sir.
I don't have anything this evening. Pretty much everything we talked about was covered. So I'd suggest that we move on with the resolutions.
Okay, item number 1, a resolution proclaiming April 1st, 2015 as World Autism Day and April as Autism Awareness Month in Upper Township.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 2, appointing members of the Upper Township Security Committee.
Move the resolution.
Second.
And just for the public's notice, that will be Mr. Young, Mr. Pearson from the committee, Lieutenant Douglas Pearson from the New Jersey State Troopers, Jay Potter, our Chief of EMT, Mr. Dietrich as an engineer, friend Donlin, who is a state trooper and had been involved with this in the past, and then Ed Corcoran, who is our IT person. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 3, consenting to the County of Cape May purchase of development easement on land known as Block 559, lots 36.01 and 37 on the official tax map of Upper Township.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 4, declaring certain township property and equipment as surplus and authorizing its disposal by sale on an online auction website.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 5, affirming the ability of the Army Corps of Engineers and its contractors to work on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, in connection with the Grade A Harbor Inlet to Townsend Inlet, New Jersey Hurricane and Storm Reduction Project.
Move the resolution.
Second.
And this was by their request so that they can continue to work and not have any violations of any ordinances that are in place. So. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 6, revised 2015 temporary budget.
Move the resolution.
Second?
Okay, let's call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 7, under ordinances, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 1, 2015, an ordinance authorizing the sale of lands, block 417, lots 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if you so choose to introduce this ordinance, I would like to have a public hearing, if possible, on March 9th.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move the ordinance.
Second.
And just for the public notice, this is an introduction of the ordinance, so there'll be an opportunity to discuss this at the public hearing on March 9th. So would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 8, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2, 2015, an ordinance authorizing the sale of lands, block 424, lots 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60.
Move to introduce.
Second?
And same date, March 9th?
March 9th. yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 9, under new business, Ocean City Girls Lacrosse Booster Club request to hold a bingo. Bingo application number 444 at the Upper Township Community Center on March 14th, 2015.
Move to allow?
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Someone like to make a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
There are a number of municipal reports from our various departments: animal control, construction code, EMS report, from the finance office, an MUA report, the tax collector report, there's certificate of determination and award issue of bond anticipation note, and then also a tax collector 2014 annual year-end report. All of those reports will be available upon request at the municipal clerk's office tomorrow morning. But at this time, I'd like to make a motion to accept these reports.
Can we take items 17 and 18 separately, just so the minutes reflect that they were separately accepted and approved?
So we'll stop at the tax collector, 16.
Yes.
So
Make-
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
And I'd ask for a separate motion on the certificate of determination and award the issue of bond anticipation note.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
And then separately, the 2014 annual tax collector year-end report.
Move to accept.
Second. That's fine.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay. So, at this time, we've actually reached the public comment portion of the meeting. And is there anyone that would like to address the Township Committee? Yes.
Ted Kingston, Strathmere. I still haven't gotten over last year's budget workshop meetings, so coming into this year, although I appreciate the workshops, somehow they don't seem to tie into the basic question. I mean, what I want to know up front is, how much of a tax increase are you proposing? And when we go down these line items, like, what are the choices to offset that increase? I mean, just going down the lines of what all is in the budget, they're all worthwhile. For them to have gotten to the point where they're on the budget lines, they're worthwhile projects. The balance and the judgment and the planning is, okay, if we do everything that's on that budget list, how much of a tax increase are we looking at? You kind of end up falling asleep here through the budget workshops, and then at the end, it's like, okay, we cut everything we can, here's your tax increase. What are we looking at for a tax increase this year? And what's on the chopping block that can be discussed to offset that?
Right now, we're looking for 0 tax increase. Based on what we've seen in the budget so far, it is attainable. There are some capital requests in there that are going to have to be addressed. And we are also going to take a look at some of our operating expenses. But it's right now combing $375,000 out of the first draft of the budget seems to be a very attainable goal. So I don't think we're looking at tax increase.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of...
And just for the, so you understand, approximately 275,000 represents a cent in the tax increase.
Right.
200, how much?
And that's gonna change
Because of the
because
reval, it's a little
revaluation,
difficult
and,
to.
and you have to be careful, it's a reval year, because in a reval year, everybody's relative burden of taxes will shift depending upon whether they were overassessed and got reduced or underassessed and got increased. Most of the people in the township were probably overassessed, perhaps not Strathmere, because Strathmere had many appeals over many years, so, but there's some people on the mainland portion that haven't appealed in 5 years, and you can imagine, given what the economy's been like, there might be some adjustments there. So that's all going to go into the mix when the tax bill comes out, your relative value compared to your neighbors.
So
It's going to be changed.
But
you're
compared to
predicting a
last
shift
year's,
back to the island again?
I have no idea. I haven't
Okay.
seen it yet.
Okay.
Shouldn't everybody, well, let's put it this way, if they do their job right, everybody should be at the fair value and paying their fair share. But it's not gonna be an easy thing to compare from one year to the next, because it's a reval year. Everybody's just getting adjusted.
Okay. I mean,
but see, Ted, I think from what you're questioning, the reason why we do this is we feel that in fairness to the department heads that are requesting this, that for us to make a conscious decision, and by us I mean the 5 of us, that we want to understand why each line item was put in there. And so even though we're going through it like, okay, that's that, it doesn't mean we're not cutting it. It just means that we need to know why they put it in there, and then we have to make that ultimate decision on priorities.
I think it's a worthwhile process and all. It's just, like last year, I was surprised because we were going along, and like you're saying, this year, you're looking at trying to get a 0 increase. Well, I thought that's where we were heading last year, and then all of a sudden the hearings were over, and it was like, nope, we can't do nothing, you got a tax increase.
Well, last year, keep in mind, the goal was nearly $750,000. Of that, we were able to get close to half of it, which still warrant us putting a tax increase through. Again, this year, going through, having conversations, looking at the various line items, looking at some of the capital requests, which probably won't be approved, we should be able to find the $375,000 without an issue.
Okay, well, that would be great.
It's really, you know, last year was very much a struggle compared to what this year is going to be.
Okay.
Every year it gets tougher. Everybody's priority, you know, as you said, seems, you know, very important for one reason or another, but nevertheless, we need to try to find ways to hold that line.
Well, I mean, there's always a limited resource and trying to feed a lot of worthwhile projects. So, I mean, I know it's not an easy process, but as department head of Strathmere, I would advocate for, I think the work Stuart Farrell does is extremely important to the welfare of Strathmere. If there's a choice in Strathmere, I'd much rather see the beach surveys than the new 4-wheeler. That would be my...
Except for if you were the one that had the broken leg.
That's true. But the overall...
Just making sure that we're on the same page.
Keep
Perspective.
in mind, you know, my position was not to shortchange Strathmere. It was it was a question, is this really necessary considering that we will receive some kind of an as-built survey for the beach? I asked that question because I don't have the answer to it, but I very much would like to know that answer, and if there is a possibility that we can somehow save a little bit of money there using the Corps of Engineers survey as one of those, then obviously it's something we should consider. It's not something at this point that's slated to be removed from the budget because we don't have the answer to that question right now.
Okay. And one last quickie, Russ Morano was here. He was kind of asking if, could the budget workshops be televised?
I think when we get maybe down to the final one, we will. But because it's so informal, because, you know, we're working and, you know, and honestly, there's, you know, different issues that come up and, you know, we chose to do it that way this year. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be done in the future, but it was just for no reason at all, just because it's more, with a workshop, it's a little bit more relaxed than what we have for a formal meeting. But, you know, I don't know that anybody's adverse to that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, those workshops are important, and probably compared to a meeting isn't as important as a meeting. That's so, you know, for consideration.
Ted.
Thank you.
And
Ted.
the other thing too, if you took Mr. Pearson's suggestion or heard what he suggested, Ed Barr and I have been talking about looking at some of these expenses and tracking these expenses in the Public Works Department in a much different way than maybe had been done in the past. You know, with that, as we go on, that will enable us to plan out these expenses a lot closer, and we'll be able to get a lot closer to where we need to be on that initial round of the budget going forward. And one of them really just comes down to mapping some of the expenses. Now, we did not get to the Public Works component this evening because it is going to be rather lengthy. But I think as you see us go through that, we're going to be able to remap some of these expenses and get a better picture of what the overall expenditures are there.
Okay.
Ted, I just have one question. I'm not familiar with Strathmere's tax, the way it flows, and perhaps you can fill me in. I can tell you how it is in my district in Marmora. I roughly pay 3 to 4% for fire services, the township, which is to the commissioners, fire commissioners.
Right.
Roughly 73% goes to the school board. Roughly 15% goes to the county of Cape May, and I understand their taxes are going to go up to some percent. And then the other is probably 7 to 8% comes from our services to support your operations. Now, that's over here. I don't know about your tax bill, but is that about the same?
Their values are different, so
Yeah.
their numbers are different, but the rates are all the same.
Okay, so then,
The only thing that might not be the same is the fire district.
yeah, that's true, because that's a little smaller operation there. But I just want you to
Rates are the
keep that in
same,
there.
but if you pass on $2 to a mainland taxpayer, you're probably passing on $8 to a Strathmere taxpayer. You know what I mean? The impact of changes is significant.
Sure,
over there.
good. The assessment on the property. and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, understand that. Thank you very much, Ted.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good.
I know you guys. Rob Vicario, Beasley Point. I used to live near Obie, now I moved near you. Maybe that'll help. I wanted to talk about senior citizens, what you could do for them. And I'm looking up there, you're not far away.
I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm there.
I'm
We're
getting
all
there. I'll be
together.
60 before this year's out.
Oh, good for you. What do we do for the senior citizens? You got an 18% penalty for taxes. I was looking at my tax bill. I'm thinking, gee, if I get any older, I won't be able to pay my taxes. They're going to want 18%. That's worse than, that's like a big bank interest rate. Who makes that rate up, and why does it have to be? Why can't you do something for the senior citizens? You do for everybody else in the township.
It's not controlled, those type
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, we can't control that. That's by the state legislature. There are some breaks for the seniors that don't have enough income. You can actually have a tax freeze. Veterans get some breaks, but all that's state law.
I looked into that. You have to be in poverty.
Yeah.
And the $250 a township gives you reminds me of the Social Security, the death benefit.
I don't
You can't even
disagree.
bury a dog for that.
It's unfortunately, they don't have the power to change that.
Well, how about the 18%? Does that come from the state?
18%.
Interest after
If you don't
100?
pay, if you don't pay your taxes on time,
That's
there's
the
18%
state.
interest.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
the
the
state.
state or-
Now, there are some things if you can get agreements for paying late and over time, and we do have some statutory rights to.
Well, that's
allow
what I
for
wanted
that.
to say, if anybody could do anything for senior citizens. There you a lot of them in
We
the
can't just do it
township.
for senior citizens, that's a state law. We can't just pick one group of people and do it for them. We have statutory requirements under state law. That's a thing that if you're concerned about it, you would want to write to your state senator, your
Right.
governor, and your assemblyman and say, we need help here.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask these guys here. That's okay. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Now's the time to address the Township Committee. Okay, hearing, kind of like there's no other further comment, I'll turn over to Mr. Coggins, a motion to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Contract negotiation for the New Jersey Turnpike right of entry agreement. Bond counsel contract, tax appeal for the conflict attorney, the cell tower contract, and the collective bargaining agreement. Also personnel matters. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality.
Second, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you all for coming. Have a great evening. Drive safe.